is the Matrix?
Oh, I am so glad you asked. Let's get going. Welcome to a brand new video of the Targeted Individual Program, Targeted Individual Experience. Just let me, there we go. So, today we are going to be talking about the Havana Syndrome, and we are going to dispel the lies by the US government and its intelligence agency that the attack on the diplomats was, in fact, an attack either by a US adversary or the US security agency and military themselves. So, we're going to watch just a few minutes of this White House briefing with Catherine, Corinne Jean Pierre. Okay, she's talking about the Havana syndrome.
So we have concerns about that as it relates to
because he does not think it's a threat to national security, or because he does not have a legal mechanism to do so?
I'm not going to get into the specifics on what he has legally to do so or to not do so. What I'm saying, and we've been very clear, that TikTok, poses a problem and an issue.
Okay, that's TikTok. I don't know why
Branch
TikTok
of his authority, and so we're going to continue to call that out.
Do the actions include a ban on all devices in the U.S.?
Okay.
So we are committed to is
had it.
making sure that our workforce and their
Okay, just hold on a
and
sec.
our deal and to help advance our understanding of the AHI report.
And what else you're doing to try to pinpoint exactly what caused
So
it?
a couple of things.
So she's talking about Havana syndrome, right? Again, the U.S. reported, okay, U.S. intelligence agency report says Havana syndrome probably wasn't caused by energy weapons, right? It's highly unlikely that Russia is using ray guns to give U.S. personnel nausea and headaches, right? So energy weapons are real. Military and weapon research have developed microwave guns and lasers that can be used to disable soldiers or shoot down drones. But a new report from the CIA and other intelligence agency says that these kinds of weapons probably aren't responsible for the condition known as Havana syndrome. And it should not be called Havana syndrome, but the symptoms are the damage caused by microwave and radio wave attack on human biology as well as the human psychology. All right. When U.S. personnel overseas began suffering from unexplained headaches, nausea, and hearing problems in 2016, many were quick to suspect foul play by a foreign adversary. Yeah. See, we as TIs, we know that here in the United States, it is our own government that is using these weapons against those of us that live here within the United States. All right. We're not on any other foreign soil. All right. We're not being attacked by foreign agencies. We are being attacked with these weapons by our own government. All right. A panel of experts concluded that the anomalous health incidents that came to be known as Havana syndrome could possibly have been caused by pulse electromagnetic energy, prompting some of those afflicted with the conditions to blame their symptoms on a mysterious new weapon, possibly wielded by Russian operative. Now, 7 intelligence agencies said that panel got it wrong. Okay, the Washington Post report that even after reviewing about 1,000 cases across the world, now that's 1,000 cases of government officials, right? That this technology, this weapon, has been used on. TIs, targeted individuals, have been talking about this for well over 3 decades. I remember reading a memo from, I think her name was Gillian McKinney. She was a NSA analyst at the time, and she started getting calls about these kinds of attacks. She went to her supervisor, manager, boss, what have you, to say, hey, I have all these people who are complaining and talking about directed energy being used, weapons being used on them. They have medical records to show damages done to them, and she said that she started looking into it. Then she was told to leave it alone. Eventually, she became targeted within the NSA, and I believe she left. Right, she had to leave. Right, because again, they were engaging in psychological warfare against her in order to silence her and discredit her. Okay, so this is nothing new. 1968, Russian. We know that for a fact that Russian was bombarding the U.S. embassy in Moscow with microwave frequency. We know that many of the diplomats suffered the same types of symptoms that the U.S. Spies and other government officials suffered. Okay, and we know that we as TIs, we suffer those same experiences and those same symptoms, the same damage. Okay, from mild traumatic brain injury to, uh, you know, I would say heavy traumatic brain injury, as well as a whole host of psychological uh, damage, injury, as well as biological and physical injury. Okay? All right. So, not by energy weapons, not from electronic surveillance, and not from unintentional exposure to radio wave or ultrasonic beams. Analysts simply couldn't find any common pattern that linked the anomalous health incidents together that could suggest an intentional attack, noting that in some cases there wasn't even direct line of sight from which an energy weapons could have been used. And to be perfectly honest with you, they're lying. You don't. You would need. You don't even need a direct line of sight. You don't, particularly when that individual may have been microchipped. Okay, and when you want to affect the people around that individual, you don't need a direct line of sight. Okay, so I don't want to get too technical into this because this would take a long while. Some of the things I don't even understand myself, right? But I know based on my experience, right? I know based on my medical records, my uh, the damage that have been done. Okay, that you don't need direct line of sight, particularly for those of us who have been uh, illegally microchipped, right? For the purpose of brain monitoring, BCI interface, brain computer interface. I always say that we are the experimentees, right? And they will do whatever they need or can do to get rid of us, to silence us, to discredit us, because again, they know that there are those of us that gonna want to expose this, and this is what I'm doing, and others have been doing, right? So the false, I shouldn't say false, but the the psychiatric diagnosis is how they cover this stuff up. Um, though you will become psychologically damaged, make no mistake about it. Okay, so let's talk about what happened recently. Okay, where reporters through the Freedom of Information Act, were able to obtain the report, right? Though it was heavily redacted, okay? And some of the things that were redacted just didn't make any sense. Like what type of brain scan that was done. Now, why would you redact that? Do they have advanced machines, medical devices and machines that can um, do brain scans that is not available in the health industry today? Something to think about, right? So I didn't want to show you know, the artwork that was on this article because again, it's triggering, right? It doesn't trigger me, but I do recognize it, and I didn't want to trigger any other TIs from uh, seeing that. So I'm going to start here. But the um, name of the article is called Exclusive Declassified Reports Suggest Havana Syndrome Could Result from Energy Weapons. Now, I just talked about, right, in this article from Engadget, March 1st, right, in which they said that these injury were not caused by any kind of weapon, but it was, they claimed it was environmental, something within the environment. So it's a broad term that they use, right? Broad, very broad term, okay? But the declassified report states that this was a weapon that was used, okay? So a newly obtained declassified report prepared for the Director of National Intelligence by a panel of experts appears to show conclusively that Havana syndrome, a cluster of unexplained symptoms. Okay, I don't know. I I don't like it when I can see my cursor. So just give me a couple seconds. Okay. All right, there you go. Um, where am I? So it does not reach any conclusion. Oh, let me go back here. A cluster of unexplained symptoms experienced by diplomats and government personnel abroad is not a naturally occurring health problem. It does not reach any conclusion about who or what may be responsible, but suggests that an unknown device or weapon using pulse electromagnetic energy remain a plausible explanation. No, it's not plausible. It's 100% definitely, right? Pulse electromagnetic energy. Okay. The documents was declassified after the James Madison Project, a nonprofit dedicated to reducing government secrecy, obtained sued to obtain further information on anomalous health incidents, or AHIs, the official term used to designate the syndrome. The US government is covering up evidence as to what AHIs are, says James Madison Project attorney Mark Zayed, who also represent a number of Havana syndrome patients. This report differs from the summary released earlier this month and previous statements from the intelligence community. It is becoming apparent that those events were perpetrated either by foreign actors or it is an experiment gone horribly wrong. Okay? So, again, you have the US governments and the security agencies throwing its own people under the bus, just like they did in 1968 through the early 1980s. Because in 1977 or 78, I think the State Department asked Russia to stop, irradiating their embassy, and but the Russians continued to irradiate the American embassy well into the 1980s. Okay, so uh, although heavily redacted, the 153-page report clearly outlines that the signs and symptoms of Havana syndromes are genuine and compelling, and finds that some of the cases cannot be easily explained by known environmental or medical conditions and could be due to external stimuli. So, for example, right, I also have arthritis in my right hands. Um, now what they're doing is that, let's say, whenever I use sugar, right, they would honk the horn, right? Okay. And again, in order to say, well, this is what caused my arthritis. No, it wasn't. Okay. It was being hit by directed energy weapons. That's what caused it. At 40 years old, I was almost fully grayed. Okay. When you are attacked with these weapons, right, it ages you. It also will activate diseases or illnesses that you may get later on in life. Okay? So it basically speeds up the process because of the damage that it does to your DNA. Okay? And they are trying everything to manipulate me, to silence me. I can't even bend, and I rarely bend. If I'm bending down, I bend more with my knees, and I have to, if I do bend with my back, I have to hold on to something with one hand. Okay? If I bend over slightly with my back, it can only be for a couple of seconds. Any longer, then I'll start to experience micro tearing of the muscle, particularly in the upper part of my back. But I shouldn't say upper part, but the upper part of my butt to the lower part of my back, right? And that is a very painful experience, right? To where you literally can't walk. So depending on which side there is micro tearing, you cannot step on that leg. It's a very painful and tingly feeling at the same time. It's it's something that you would have to experience in order to know how painful it is, but also how funny it feels, right? And so, you know, don't want that to happen ever again. So I'm very, very careful, okay? And so every time, let's say, if what they will do too is they'll leave stuff, you know, in your path to where you may have to turn, and usually I'm turning with my whole body. I try not to twist my upper body because again, that will further injure my back and cause a tremendous amount of pain. But this is what they'll do, and they do these things when they retaliate. If I'm taking the bus, so whenever they retaliate, I always get on a bus that have very bad suspension. If I'm sitting down, I literally have to raise myself up in order to not have my back be damaged or hurt, right? And what that does by doing that is that it places stress on your knees, okay? And so then you have other complicated issues that arise because again, you're trying to protect your back or whatever part of your body that's been injured from being hurt, okay? And they know this. This is what they do is again injure you over a long period of time to make it look as if it's a naturally occurring thing, okay? But it is not. All right. And if you're a TI, you need to go get, and particularly if you just realize you're a target, whether within the past couple of years, you need to do everything possible to go and get MRI done, X-rays done. You know, whatever part of your body. If you're getting headaches, then you need to get an MRI in the brain. There is now a I forgot the name of the MRI that you're supposed to get, but it'll literally show more of the damages caused by these weapons, right, to your brain. So again, but this is what they continue to do. All right. So the declassify report, officially titled Anonymous Health Incidents, Analysts of Potential Causal Mechanism, also said that pulse electromagnetic energy, particularly in the radio frequency range, plausibly explain the core characteristics of at least some reported medical condition, and finds that sources exist that can generate the required stimulus, are concealable, and have moderate power requirements. So in the beginning, they were saying, oh, you need this huge amount of energy and all this stuff, but that's a lie. The microchip that I have implanted in my brain uses my body's electrical system, right, in order to operate, right? So they don't need even a moderate amount of energy. They don't. Okay? So, such electromagnetic signals, the report continues, could be propagated with low loss through air for tens of hundreds of meters, and with some loss through most building materials. Right? Well, let me just say this. All right? When I'm under heavy remote node monitoring, when they're using my what's the word I'm looking for here? Like when they're able to use my eyes, the information that the brain receives through my eyes, like they're looking at what I'm holding, the color, right? When the police are outside, if I pick up something that's green, for example, they hate it when I hold anything that's green in my hand. Okay, let me do this. Okay, let's get this mic out of the way. So whenever I'm holding anything that's green in my hand, such as my tablet, right, like this, they will use the police siren. So if I'm holding even a towel, they will use the, oops, excuse me, they will use the police siren. So it's constant, right? You know, I would hear this. Okay, very low frequency, not low frequency, but very low volume. And again, it's something that, you know, is being done on a daily basis. So it shows you that not only do they have the capability to surveil you in your own home in such a way that is very disturbing and psychologically damaging, right? That through the microchip, okay, they can literally use your visual cortex, right, to see what you're seeing. Okay, and again, there's been a recent report about these things, right? But they were able to do this in the early 2000s, right? And by 2017, as Dr. Nick Vega said, that they had perfected these weapons. And I talked about this. If you go back, I have a lot of videos. So, you know, you might not be able to go, you have to search through thousands of videos, okay? But there were times during my targeting, and I think I received the last chip update, basically implanted with a microchip, about maybe 3, 4 years ago. Every couple of years, I would wake up in the morning, right? Go to the bathroom, brush my teeth. If I touch my nose, I would be in such extreme pain, right? And it's usually, I believe it was the right side of my nose. I think I'm not quite sure, you know. But again, like for example, um, one of my earlier MRIs showed that I had a tumor in my right navel cavity. Okay, the doctor said it was a benign tumor. Now, um, do I believe him? He's the doctor, right? So we take the doctor's word for it. Okay, and so when you read about Xerxesum and they talk about how doctors were involved in participating in targeting individuals, giving them false diagnosis, mislabeling them. Yeah, it was a purposeful thing, program to destroy people's lives, and particularly here in the U.S. when they want to cover up their non-consensual human experimentation program. Okay, um, this is what they'll do. And when you speak out against it, when you expose it, right, they will try to charge you with uh, crimes which you didn't commit. They'll try to set you up. Okay? This is the retaliatory nature of the dark triad personality types. All right? And they have instilled themselves within positions of power, particularly in law enforcement and the security agencies, as well as the military, and Congress and the Senate, in order to uh, conduct these types of experiments and get away with it. Okay, so I do have the uh, document. Okay, this is the PDF document, and it is called. Let me just do this here. Okay, let's do that. Let's move this over a bit. You guys hear the coughing sound? Oh, I gotta get that sound effect. Okay, the coughing sound. Um, but unfortunately, my Steam Deck, I don't have enough screens on there. Um, I guess I can create a folder to store those other sound effects in there because I want to be able to show you guys to let you guys listen in terms of the type of sound effects that they'll do. And as I was talking about that, that's what happened. As I talk about my Stream Deck and creating a folder to put the other sound effects in, file, right? So earlier on in my targeting, they were talking about, yeah, they do this and they create a file on you, right? And again, this is a file that's created um, to label you also because, they operate covertly, right? To create within your psyche a person that will act, think, and behave negatively so they can, get rid of you, right? And when I started to realize that, I started to remove myself from certain situations, right? Because I realized that they were transmitting commands and words using silent sound, suggestions and stuff like that using silent sound. Okay, and so that's why even today, I don't really go to parties. I don't. I stay away from the opposite sex, even though I'm still attracted to the opposite sex. I will always be attracted to the opposite sex. They've tried to use gay men in my targeting, right? and as a way to manipulate me and stuff like that. But I see through it, you know, understanding the psychological programming and psychological programs um, help me to better uh, to have a better understanding of how they manipulate people, particularly when using this technology. Okay, there were many times they've sent numerous honey traps, right? I'm talking about beautiful women who uh, are the type of women that I would, you know, date, right? I'll be interested in, you know. But, you know, when I started to recognize the pattern, I started to see the pattern, you know, I just kept walking, never bothered. You know, I never noticed it before. But then when I started to think, I'm like, oh, okay. So this is what they've been doing, right? So anyhow, um, so here's the report. Okay, let's go to the table of contents, right? And again, you'll see um, they have uh, uh, here's it's the anomalous health incident analysis of potential causal mechanism. Okay, and this is September 2022. So earlier this month, they came out and said, you know, no, it's not caused by these weapons. It's something environmental. Now, what happened? Why you don't see these very same official who said that this was environmental? Okay, why are they not speaking now? You know, I mean, they should show you who the liars are. They should show you who's deceiving who. Okay, so table of content, executive summary, scope note and background, medical analysis of AHIs, assessing plausibility from source to case, potential causal mechanism, uh, electromagnetic energy, acoustic energy, psychosocial factors, chemical and biological agent, ionizing radiation, comparison to national academics study, uh, recommendation, closing note, and such and such. Now I want to read a few pages here. All right, it's 153 pages. Not gonna be able to read all of that. Okay, but let's go through the exclusive summary. Director of the National Intelligence, uh, Avril Haines, and Deputy Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, David Cohen, established the IC Experts Panel on Anomalous Health Incident, AHIS, to examine potential causal mechanism of the AHIS affecting U.S. government personnel. The panel comprised experts from inside and outside the U.S. government with expertise in relevant areas of science, medicine, and engineering. The panel did not examine questions related to attribution of AHIS to an actor, including the question of whether a foreign actor may be involved. Right? It's funny they just said foreign actor and not foreign actors. Right? That would suggest that they believe that one uh, foreign state is involved in this. Probably Russia. Why? Why do I say that? Because again, they have plenty of documentation going back to the 1950s of the Russians working on these technologies. And again, America owned experiments with their diplomat experience with their diplomat at the American embassy in Moscow in the late 60s, right, to the early 80s. All right, so the panel's findings are one of several inputs that will inform the IC's work on AHIs moving forward, methodology and scope, information sources. Access to information was central to the panel's process. In response to a request from DNI Haines, departments and agencies provided the panel with dozens of briefing of more than 1,000 classified documents on a variety of scientific, medical, and intelligence topics. This information included the findings, again, that's the redacted, sensitive intelligent reporting, AHI, events description, and 10 analysis. Affected individual also shared their personal experience and portion of their medical records. Potential causal mechanism. As a starting point, the panel examined 5 potential causal mechanisms identified by the IC: acoustic signals, chemical and biological agents, ionizing radiation, uh, psychosocial, medical, and other natural and environmental factors, and radio frequency, and other electromagnetic energy. Throughout the panel, throughout the study, the panel worked to identify additional plausible mechanism and to avoid bias for or against any specific hypnosis. I'm sorry, hypothesis. You guys are gonna have to excuse me. There are days when, because of all of the targeting, all of the beaming of sounds around me, that it will affect me. Okay, so sometimes I have to really uh, slow down on my reading. Sometimes I'll miss words because I don't see them, and then I have to look again in order to be able to see those words. Right. So if I miss a word, I'll try to correct it. If I don't, please understand. Okay. So, all right. So throughout the study, the panel worked to identify additional possible mechanism and to avoid bias for or against any specific hypothesis. The panel did not examine in detail combinations of mechanisms, although it judged some combination, particularly those involving chemical and biological agent, to be worthy of further exploration. Core characteristics. Core characteristics. Characteristics. Uh, to narrow the problem, the panel assessed the potential of each mechanism to account for reported aspect of those AHIs that were not readily explained through other means. The panel's focus on these incidents, and as I said, other means, you hear the police siren. Okay. Now, one of the things also they've been doing lately, again, is, and I've, again, observing, you guys see that I haven't done a video in a few days, but it was for a reason. Some things happen, which I'll talk about in another video within the home involving family members that, again, you're a TI, so, they are involved in the psychological, I should say the PSYOPs part of this program, to deny, to ignore, and to try and discredit, right? So, and also they engage in running these sort of retaliatory type actions, all right? And as I said, retaliatory, the police sirens, right? I talked about at one point, they were telling me to not seek revenge, to not retaliate, all right, in what it is that they're doing. And I'll say this, and I've said to other TI, if I had the ability, the capability, the resources to enact some sort of revenge, yeah, without a heartbeat, I'll take it. Okay? Without a heartbeat, I'll take it. Right? Because obviously they think it's okay for them to do this to human beings, right? To poison our food, to break into our homes, to steal our things, to try and entrap us to get others to lie, right? To make false accusation, all these other things. But yet they want to tell you and I that we shouldn't seek revenge or we shouldn't retaliate. Well, I retaliate in a manner in which they retaliate against me, in terms of the psychological warfare, the psyops. But if they are physical with me, then they'll expect the same type of response. If they're poison my food, then they're going to get back the same type of response. Okay? So I'm going to just put it that way. All right? So, and this is one of the reasons why they also destroy our financial means, right? Our jobs. They do things, particularly if you own like a car, they'll do things to your car in order to deplete your financial resources, right? Because again, they don't want you to have any financial means in order to prevent you from fighting back, okay? In a way, in terms of within the courts, um, you know, so where they leave you at the mercy of the public um, court system and the public defenders. Um, and we know the history, particularly me being a black person, of those that work within uh, that system. Okay, so um, okay, so the panel focus on these incidents should not be interpreted as diminishing the importance of other incidents. Four core characteristics are prominent among the AHIs, right? And AHIs means for an anomalous health incidents. Okay. So one, the acute onset of audio vestibular sensory phenomena, including sound and or pressure, sometimes in only one ear or on one side of the head. I talk about that. With me, it's not one side of the head. It's my entire head. Now, my headaches will occur at times on one side of the head. Then there are times when I'm under heavy remote neural monitoring, when they are trying to retaliate against me, when they're trying to traumatize me, where every couple seconds I will get headaches um, in different areas of my head, right? And I talk about the pressure. Usually I know because first there is a buildup of pressure within my head that I can feel. And I will get the slightest pain. And once that happened, then I know what's going to happen next. Okay. It was so traumatizing trying to study and them having me under remote no monitoring where my headaches were so bad, okay, so painful that I did not pick up a book after that experience, which again caused me to um, stop going to class. And this was online, okay? That is how traumatized, and it took me a while. I've just gotten back into reading again, and of course, you know, when I read, I would say I don't remember 95% of the things that I read. I may remember a few things here and there because I've also read it elsewhere, so which helps to reinforce what I've learned. But 90 to 95% of the information that I read, particularly if I'm reading a book, I cannot retain. And they are always doing these tests. They're always testing, right? Always testing. So, for example, um, I spoke to Pam yesterday, and she had asked me something. All right. And then my daughter asked me the same thing. And I'm just like, again, this is how they use my daughter through, again, manipulating her mind, right? Hijacking her consciousness to ask me the same thing to see if I remember. Now, if I say, no, I don't remember, what do you think will happen? This is what I hear. So that's what I hear. They will use the police siren as if somehow that's supposed to help me to remember. Okay. And like I said, I'm microchipped, so they have access to, uh, my mind through these chips, right? I mean, come on now. But again, when you talk about liars and deceivers, talk about criminals, that's who they are, and they will try to uh, project onto you who they are, even if they have to create a false narrative, even if they have to manipulate you, drug you, set you up to create a false narrative. This is what they'll do. They'll do those things. Okay, so um, two, another nearby stimulus signs and symptoms such as vertigo, loss of balance. Talk about that. Um, usually if I'm putting on clothes, particularly my pants, my underwear, I have to do it one hand at a time. Or if I'm sitting down, I have to basically, because of my back injury, with my hand, lift up one of my legs in order to put it through one of the, you know, my pants leg or underwear before I can put the other one on. Okay? If I'm standing up, I have to hold on to something with one hand in order to put my pants on, put my underwear on. It's like, living in an 80-year-old body. Okay? If I move my head when I'm being irradiated, my neck, there's cracking, my elbow, to the point where I start getting worried that I might, my elbow joints might pop. Okay, my neck cracking if I move my neck up and down. Multiple cracks, side to side, multiple cracking going on. Okay, my back too. All right. All right. Okay, so let's see. Three, a strong sense of locality and directionality. Okay, and I don't know. For me, when I read that, how I interpret it, like particularly when I go outside, um, if particularly if I'm going outside for no reason, I know I've been conditioned to go wherever they want me to go. So I have to be very intentional, right, in where I want to go, not go by some feeling or some urge, and always asking myself, why am I going there? Is there any need to go there? Right? Uh, and four, the absence of known environmental and medical condition that could explain the reported signs and symptoms. So, for example, when I finally were able to get an X-ray done on my back because they had did everything to deny me the opportunity to delay me, make me late for appointments and stuff like that, and they did it purposely to well, you're it wasn't approved after being told that it was approved when I got there. It wasn't approved. All this other stuff. So when I finally got an X-ray, the X-ray technician told me. He said, "You must have been in a serious car accident because the injury that you sustained." And he's like, "When were you in a car accident?" And I always remember that. And I said, "I've never been in a car accident." And the look on his face was like in disbelief, right? Very surprised. And I don't know if they staged this or not, but he told me, he said, the injury that I have, is that of someone who's been in a serious car accident. He didn't just say car accident, he said a serious car accident. Just as my brain scan, right? That, you know, show signs of me having concussions, right? Traumatic brain injury, right? I told him, I said, I don't play sports. So then they're like, what happened? And I can't really explain it to them. They wouldn't understand. I try explaining it to my neurologist, and as I'm explaining to my neurologist, they started microwave in the office and attacking me. All right. I have not been back to my neurologist since. I'm actually looking for a new neurologist. I haven't started looking yet, and it could be because of traumatized from the last experience. Where I literally felt my skull crack as he was injecting whatever it is into my head, right? Because I had this constant pain in the back of my head, right? It's always there. I hear the sirens now, the ambulance. Okay, so plausibility. The panel considered a mechanism to be plausible if all members agreed that there was at least some credible evidence that it was technically and practically feasible in each of 5 areas. A concealable source that could generate the required stimulus. 2, the propagation and delivery of the stimulus to an individual. 3, the coupling of the stimulus to the human body. 4, the ability of the coupling to cause relevant biological effects. Now, if you go and read the document, the negative microwave effect on the human biology, they know. There are plenty of reports going way back to the 1970s, okay, where our own environmental agency did these research, right? But again, when they know that how much they've dumbed down the American public, right? How much we are being miseducated, misled, how we're being programmed to not think of certain things, not be critical thinkers, not do research anymore. You have a population. I mean, think about it, right? Almost half the American population is illiterate, or have, and talk about the adult population now, have a reading level that's 6th grade and below. Okay, so it's. I mean, come on now, right? All right. So right, and 5, the ability of the biological effect to explain the reported clinical signs and symptoms. In addition, the panel required that other evidence did not exclude the mechanism. The findings. Okay. The panel reached 6 main findings. Some are limited by knowledge gaps or assessments that could be resolved or tested through implementing the panel's recommendation. The signs and symptoms of AHIs are genuine and compelling. The panel based this assessment on incident report, medical data from the affected individuals, and interviews with their physicians and interviews with affected individuals themselves. Some incidents have affected multiple persons in the same space, and clinical samples of a smaller number of affected individuals who were tested within an appropriated time period have shown, and as I was about to say, time, again, very low frequency. So certain keywords I've talked about, right, where they'll use the police sirens, right, or car honking, right? So, right here, the time period have shown early transient elevation in biomarkers suggestive of cellular injury to the nervous system. Again, all those things is in my medical record. Right? The reported signs and symptoms of AHIs are diverse and may be caused by multiple mechanisms, but no case should be discounted. Prompt medical evaluation and care are particularly important. Most individuals who were treated soon after an event have improved. Right? Treated how? Okay. A subset of AHIs have a unique combination of core characteristics that cannot be explained by known environmental or medical conditions and could be due to external stimuli. So, why did they say that what caused the injury to these diplomats were these spies were environmental, when their very own report says that, right, the combination of core characteristics that cannot be explained by known environmental or medical conditions and could be due to external stimuli. So when you talk about liars, deceivers, this is our own government security agencies. This is multiple agencies that are lying. They are trying to hide the truth. Although some signs and symptoms of AHIs are commonly in known medical conditions, the combination of the four core characteristics is distinctly unusual, is unreported elsewhere in the medical literature, and so far has not been associated with a specific neurological abnormality. Several aspects of this unique neurosensory syndrome make it unlikely to be caused by a functional neurological disorder. The location, dependence, and sudden onset and offset, for example, argue for a, and it says argue, right? Here, the police siren. It was very short though. It was like, okay. Um, Several aspects of this unique neurosensory syndrome make it unlikely to be caused by a functional neurological disorder. The location, dependence, and sudden onset and offset, for example, argue for a stimulus that is spatially and temporarily discrete. The perception of sound and pain within only one ear suggests that stimulation of uh, mechanoreceptors, a specific cranial nerve or nuclei in the brainstem, all of which immediate hearing and balance, as well as the sensation of pressure. The lack of other symptoms also help rule out known medical conditions as well as stimuli that are known to affect other sensory or motor system. Okay, so here's the thing. When I experience sound, I don't hear it in one ear, particularly when I'm talking about the coughing that they'll do, the police siren that's out there, the playing of the Hunger Game Mockingjay song, which they now started to do regularly now. Okay, um, coughing, sneezing, spitting sound. Okay, right. I'm hearing it inside the home, but it's coming from a side that's very close, right? Because again, it's very low in terms of volume, right? And it's not just through one ear. All right. Then at times they will do this where intracranially I would hear sounds, particularly police sirens, not from the outside. And how I can tell the difference, right? It's because, again, when they're using those other sounds, you hear it outside of your apartment, your house, what have you. When they do it intracranially, meaning within the skeleton, within your skull, it is a different experience, it is a different sound. It's like, put like this: when you go underneath water, right? It's like a pressure that's in your, your ear. But think about it like this: there's no pressure in your ear. The pressure you feel it is inside. It's your brain, right? And again, or your head, I should say, because your brain doesn't have any pain receptor. So it is above the skull, right? But you know how we hear sound, right? Is intracranial, right? It can come from outside, just as how when you speak into yourself, you hear yourself in your own inner voice. I hope that makes sense. It's very hard to explain, right? Um, but I hope you guys get the gist of it. So at times they will do this, okay, and that is one of the most traumatic thing you can experience, and they do it to retaliate, particularly when I'm given information about these things, uh, exposing what they're doing, right? They will do things like that to retaliate. So if there's ever a time where you don't see me uh, doing videos regular, either because what they did was traumatizing and it may take me a couple of days to recoup, or I'm just observing something new, like a new kind of target, and they may use other family members now more so than others that they've used in the past. So I'm observing before I start to do a video to explain what was happening. Okay. All right. So okay. So all right. So the lack of other symptoms also help rule out known medical conditions as well as stimuli that are known to affect other sensory or motor systems. Electromagnetic energy, particularly pulse signal in the radio frequency range, plausibly explain the core characteristics, although information gaps exist. There are several plausible pathways involving forms of electromagnetic energy, each with its own requirements, limitations, and unknowns. For all the pathways, sources exist that could generate the required stimuli, are concealable, and have moderate power requirement. Using non-standard antennas and techniques, the signal could be propagated with low loss through air for tens of hundreds of meters and with some loss through most building materials. Ultrasound also possibly explain the core characteristics, but only in close area scenarios and with information gaps. The required energy the required energy can be generated by ultrasonic arrays that are portable and produce a tight beam. Ultrasound propagates poorly through air and building material, restricting its applicability to scenarios in which the source is near the target. It could couple to the body through the external auditory cranial intracystic interstitial spaces or the vestibular apparatus of the inner ear. Now, when I'm hearing coughing, spitting, sneezing, spitting sound, I most likely attribute it to my upstairs neighbor, right? Because my upstairs neighbor, they have targeted me multiple times during the night, moving furnitures around, sometimes every night, right? 1 o'clock in the morning, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, whatever, they'll be moving furniture around. And particularly when the police come around, use their sirens, it's like a signal. I talk about that with Pam too. When they would, and by Pam, she's very friendly. Uh, then they'll come with the police siren. Then she starts to act negatively towards me, acting hostile, right, towards me. Okay? And I keep telling her, I said, I told you. I said, this was going to happen. They're going to manipulate you. And because they've psychologically conditioned her to think a certain way, because knowing her psyche, right, getting her to, like I said, one of the things that they try to do with me is use money as a tool to silence me, you know, and that's being used on her also. And she fell for it. Okay. I tell us, when you come in contact with people, you're the mark. They manipulate you. You don't even make sure your kids do your homework if I'm not there. You always want to go out on dates, like she went out again last night, you know. Call my daughter and I told her, I said, to take a bath. And I was like, no, you know what? Forget it. Don't take a bath because I don't want you falling asleep in the bathtub. I said, you can take a bath in the morning. If your mother's not there, then I don't want you being in, particularly when you're tired and nobody's there. Her brother was sleeping because he was so tired. So again, conditioning people to this leisure fun, particularly within the Black community, it is very destructive, not to Black men and Black women, and particularly being that the majority of children are raised by women, to create that mindset within the mothers is detrimental to the kids. This is why, again, our kids are failing in school when it comes to single mothers being the head of household and the only parent that's within the home. So, like I said, I think beyond what's been done to me, and to show you guys and explain to you guys how it is being used, right, in other areas and other factors, all right, yielding all negative results. Okay. All right. Where was I? Okay. Ultrasound is used to open the blood-brain barrier in medical procedures, and ultrasonic stimulation of the aforementioned anatomical areas could produce symptoms consistent with AHIs. Studies of ultrasound sickness and related audiovestibular symptoms have reached mixed conclusion, but the panel was present with independent account in which individuals were exposed to high power ultrasound beams and subsequently experienced the core characteristics. Right? Psychosocial factors alone cannot account for the core characteristics, although they may explain some other reported incidents or contribute to long-term signs and symptoms. No known psychosocial factors explain the core characteristics, and incidents exhibiting these characteristics do not fit the majority of criteria used in discern mass psychogenic illness. Sociogenic illness. However, psychosocial factors may compound some of the incidents with core characteristics. Incidents that do not possess all or some of the core characteristics could be due to hypervigilant, which when they target me heavily, I become very hypervigilant. Okay, and again, you know, but very, very low. See, they're trying to bypass my awareness, right? And then, as I said the word bypass, uh, call honking, right? So, Hypervigilance and normal human reaction to stress and ambiguity, particularly within a workforce that is attuned to its surrounding and trained to think about security. Some of these reactions could lead to functional neurological disasters or worsen the effect of existing condition. Ionizing radiation, chemical and biological agents. This is why they use drugs. I said, all of us TIs, we've been drugged multiple times. Okay. Um, Infrasound, audible sound, ultrasound are propagated over a large distance, and bulk heating from electromagnetic energy are all implausible explanation for the core characteristics in the absence of other synergenic stimuli. These mechanisms are unlikely or on their own uh, to account for the required effect or are technically and practically infeasible. Ionizing radiation, for example, produce known biological effects that are easily measured and inconsistent with the core characteristics, and chemicals or biological agents alone would not explain the reported location dependence or directionality. Now, the use of, okay, these biological and chemical agent is to affect a person's psyche. Okay? It is also to discredit the victims. Okay? Particularly with us being TIs. See, they couldn't do that with the diplomats because there were too many that became very outspoken. They didn't say, well, I need to go see a psychiatrist, because this is what they recommend for targeted individuals to do. Okay, but because these people work in the security apparatus, okay, they knew that it was more than something psychological, right? And then again, when you have these individuals who work for the State Department, who work for the CIA, who are experiencing the same thing, and guess what? Some of these diplomats and agents, when they went to their superiors, okay, they were basically, um, you know, pushed to the side, like, it wasn't important. And then some of them started to explain the psyops. I remember watching a video of one of the CIA agent. He's like, I went to the gym. People, these people came up to me. They were wearing suits. They walked up to me, turned around, and walked off. Same thing happened to me. Same thing happened to a lot of TIs. Okay, so understand how they use chemical agents and biological agents. It could be anything. It could be um, introducing you to hernia traps, giving you STDs, right? And again, some of these chemicals may be to cause you biological damage long term. So you may not, it may not have a immediate effect, but over time, the effects would be detrimental to your health, right? Biologically or psychologically and neurologically also. All right. So I'm not going to read about the recommendations and all this stuff, but you know, again, I just want to give you guys the truth, all right? To dispel the lies that they're trying to tell us. All right? Because again, we know that they're lying based on our own experience, based on our medical records. For those of us who, um, eventually got medical records, I got the examination, the tests to show the damage that they cause. And again, damage that can be explained based on your lifestyle and based on what you do. Okay? And in order to avoid accountability, right, again, they try to use money as a determinant factor to get you to be silent. They've tried to do this with me. I refuse. I'm not going to. I always say, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than me. This is for the future of not just myself, my kids, my family, but everybody else's kids, family, and themselves. Now, there may be a lot of people out there who is fine with doing this to other people. This is why we, as targeted individuals, those of us who decided to speak out against this thing, that ultimately we understand the cost. We understand the cost of being a whistleblower, of speaking out when they're trying to silence you, when they realize that they cannot use money as a tool to control you, to silence you. So now they have been on a steady stream of trying not only to discredit but to destroy you, and to either incarcerate you, institutionalize you, uh, assassinate you. And when I say these things, people take it as, oh, he's being delusional. No, I'm not. Look at the evidence that they've done it before, many times. I'm not saying this just to say this. You know, when I'm giving you my own personal experience, when I record when I'm outside with my phone or even in the home, I'm showing you what it's like to be a targeted individual, to have these weapons turn on you and your family and your kids and the people around you. Okay, and when I do videos like this, it is to give you guys, the truth, show you the documentation, show you the evidence, right? So when they say that these weapons don't exist, or it's crickets, which is funny. I do have a cricket sound. Uh, I think it's in my other other program. Let's see something if I can. No, actually, I can't. I can't do that um, because it will start a whole new music and everything like that. But uh, yeah, and they're saying that, oh, it's crickets. The sound of crickets don't neurologically damage a person. Don't psychologically damage a person in such a rapid time manner, right? I've been in this program over 2 decades. My brother's been in this program for almost 30 years. The others that's been in this program 40 years plus. And as I said, my brother been in this program uh, for 30 years. That's what I hear. So the more I speak is the more they're telling me sometimes that because you exposing it, we're going to keep you into this program many, many years. But I don't care. I don't care. What I care about is that uh, they don't do this to other people. Okay. So when you see me um, recording with my phone, right, or using my defense mechanism, which I do with colors, right, and then I had to research, right, what if colors are used to manipulate people, but colors manipulate your mood, but you just don't realize it. Most of us don't realize it. Colors can be used to induce you to buy things, to induce your emotions, whether it make you happy or sad, uh, anger. There's a field within psychology of it's called the psychological effective colors. So these things I had to research, right? Dark NLP, right? Conversational hypnosis, right? All these things are used against us to discredit us, to create within our psyche a person who engage in negative behavior, then they're hoping that you will engage in negative behavior so that way you can be institutionalized, whether it be within the penal institution, the psychiatric facility, or killed, assassinated. Okay? This is how they get rid of the evidence. You are the evidence. I am the evidence. And I realized that. This is why I didn't fall for a lot of their tactics. Okay? But they still can manipulate you with silent sound. Just how deep the manipulation is, you know. But what they'll do, if they realize and know that because you're on to what it is that they're doing, they'll manipulate you in very small ways. You know, like what? Let me give you an example. So what they've been doing, right? So let's say if I'm reading an article, it's like I was watching a video with Meg Thee Stallion, and then she had on a dress with what looks like a play button. So I had to install new effect on my Stream Deck. One of the effect is the Neo ask,
what is the Matrix?
what is the Matrix? So I was going to use a play button to as an icon on the Stream Deck. Right? When I got to the play button, I'm hovering over it with the cursor. You know, I hear. So what? Because if I choose the play button, that's supposed to be, I'm supposed to be guilty. See, this is how they use the power of association. Right? Again, using these things in negative ways to induce paranoia, to induce some sort of fight or flight, right? So they can say, well, look, he's suspicious, she's suspicious, they're suspicious. Okay? But they never seem to think that when they're lying, right, and they've been exposed with the truth, right, that they themselves act suspicious from those who trying to find the truth. They will deny them Freedom of Information Act requests to where, you know, people have to sue, organizations have to sue in order to get that information. They act suspicious all the time. But somehow what they're doing is not a crime. Okay? And suspicion doesn't mean that you're committing a crime. See, that's the thing they've always used again, particularly us as black people, us as black men. Oh, you look suspicious. Are you acting suspicious? You know, as I was driving by, you looked the other way. So that's indicator to them that you're involved in some criminal activity, right? Or as we was approaching, you walked away. Hell, friggin' yeah. I'm a black man. If this is a black young man or a teenager, we know how these police behave. And we don't want to get caught up in their racist BS, right? Because it could mean that we end up being killed or put in jail, right? They just make up crimes, grab shit out of thin air. Okay? They'll make up all kind of stupid shit. I've seen it. I've experienced it. Right? So, anyhow, with that being said, I hope this video was very informational. And again, you know, stay tuned for my personal videos, which will explain how I've been targeted, how they shifted the targeted, and how they're now using new family members to target me in a particular way. Okay? So with that being said, talk to you guys on the next video.